Hi, Jason. How are you doing?
Hi, Judy. I'm doing well. You?
Good. It's finally good to meet you after our phone conversation.
Great to talk to you again too.
Sure. So today I like to ask you a bunch of questions about your background and your career and how you found Dr. Wu. So can we start with what did you do before you became a practitioner and a student?
Sure. So I graduated from Boston University. I have a bachelor's degree in computer engineering at the time. And being in Boston, I started working soon after. I also happened to have a real estate license, so I was kind of also doing that on the side,
Yeah.
supplement a little bit of income because in the beginning it's a little rough. So I was working for kind of like somewhere between like in startup and internship. I'm not sure whether they were already in the startup phase or whether it was slightly before that. But
Right.
the I was helping them with coding, and I
Okay.
was kind of their sole debugger. So it was a very stressful job, and because of that, sometimes I slept at like 5 a.m. or so,
Oh,
and
wow.
that really messed up my body. So the original issue that I went to Dr. Wu for was incontinence. I didn't actually seek help from Western medicine, which I know from seeing the other testimonies might be a little different. And that's because as a person who was in Boston in computer engineering, Boston has a very big pharmaceutical basis. And
Mm,
because the pharmaceutical is so big here, I went to different kind of talks that they give and all of that. And a lot of the talks they will talk about kind of the medicines coming out, and the biggest issue is usually money. And to see this return in profit means that they have to count how many people are currently sick or even dying. And if the amount's not up to par, then they have to make a projection and say, how many years later can we give out this medicine that we know works now to actually help people? The death count has to go from, say, 40K a year to 200K a year for the medicine to be made. And so it kind of made me a little bit hesitant with
right.
the current drugs on the market, as I was essentially forward because I knew the drugs that come after, which would be, of course, better than the ones we have now. So I was
Right.
not as willing to go through Western medicine, knowing that the ones that we have now are not as good as that, which is later.
Yeah, no, that's great background information. I mean, I don't think a lot of people have that kind of experience insight that you had, knowing that pharmaceutical companies do death projections. It sounds a little insane, but anyway, I can
It's
see why.
unfortunate. It is unfortunate, but they do have kind of this need to make the medicine without losing money, because
Mhm.
the problem with Western medicine that I personally think exists, and Western medicine doctors will tell you this as well, so will pharmacists, so will people working in the pharmaceutical industry. It's the cost. When the cost is too high, even if you have a great medicine, you just can't produce it because, you know, the researchers, the doctors, they're not billionaires and trillionaires. They just don't have the money to put it into factory production. So this requires, of course, an assembly line. You require custom checks. You require balances. You require pollution and kind of mitigation of that. And
Mhm.
then even in the processes, you need to have all these checks in place because being a made medicine means that it's refined. One thing goes wrong and the whole thing can have various very dangerous issues, which is also why I was switching eventually after seeing Dr. Wu to the field in herbal medicine, because I realized that when I go to Mother Earth and I pull an herb from the ground, the check has been done for me. It's
Mhm.
alive, it's there, it's not dead, it's not broken, and you
Right.
check it and it's fine. I don't need to have all these complicated associations, and it doesn't require large amounts of money. That's the biggest reason I think of the danger or kind of this issue holding Western medicine back.
Right. So because you had this experience, you were a computer programmer, right? A coder.
Yes.
And was it for a pharmaceutical company?
Oh no, that was it wasn't for a pharmaceutical company. It was just a very simple startup. I believe It had to do something, the thing that I was doing had to do with kind of pressure management and chip making.
Okay.
So I was kind of designing things that were controlling the valves, making sure that, when you make a chip, you need different layers added on one on top of the other, et cetera, et cetera. So kind of in the wafer industry, I guess, for the chips that we have in the
Got it.
computer. Yeah.
But this information, this exposure that you had with this pharmaceutical industry and knowing all the background information was part of the reason why you went on this direction to seek
Yes.
naturopathic, right?
Yes.
Um, so how did you find Dr. Wu exactly? Was it on Google search or at an expo or?
It was actually from someone that we knew
Oh, okay.
from the family that kind of had some experiences with TCM treatment, and but they were not kind of specialized in various more advanced issues. And so they
Right.
brought us to go see Dr. Wu because they said, oh, this is something that Dr. Wu can definitely help with. So they
Right.
brought me over.
That's great. So, Jason, because of your work previously as a coder, was it because of that job that brought the incontinence, or was it you had it before?
It was something that was brought about by the job, not the fault of the company, though. I do not want to have
Right. Yeah.
anything
No,
where
no,
it
you're
feels
good.
like I'm being mean to them. It's actually because of my own issue. Even though I am in the field of computer engineering, I do realize that it is a field that is rife with geniuses, and
Right.
I am not a genius.
Yeah.
And so, even though the workload I think was supposed to be reasonable because I was both new and also barely graduated, I was not able to handle it within a reasonable time. And being a person that is, I believe, as decently responsible, if I may say, I don't want to sound too egotistical. I believe that I have to finish the work. And so it was
Mm,
partially my fault as well, which is why when patients come in, I always tell them as well, you have to have this life balance, this work life
mm,
balance. You have to
mm.
control and manage your health because oftentimes, even patients that run their own business will run their own body to the ground, not because anyone was forcing them, but because they have this sense of responsibility. And it's kind of my job now to tell them, whoa, take off a little bit of a load, hire someone to help. It'll lower your profit margins, but you'll live longer, so
Right.
you'll actually get to spend those profits.
Yeah. No, you definitely hit a major point. I mean, I think this is part of the reason why a lot of Americans are getting sicker is that level of pressure to make money, to survive, to stay on this treadmill because that's all they know. And they're sacrificing their mental health, their emotional health, and their physical health. And, I find it very intriguing and fascinating, especially coming from you because you're young and, you were in computer engineering and tech is such a big deal. It's every day. It's an everyday thing that we deal with. So, what would you say to people that are in the industry of technology?
Okay, so first, you always want to have something you do on the side. Stretch before you exercise and have an exercise. Preferably, I know Tai Chi works, I know yoga works. These are the ones that I hear patients talk about. And once they join, there is a markable difference in their body. When I feel their body, their energy flow is very different, especially for Tai Chi, because that's the one I practice. But I also have one patient that did yoga for about 4 weeks, and her entire body condition just improved quite
Mm.
a bit, substantially. And the ones that I do notice that have an issue, even though they exercise, I ask them, do you stretch before you work out? The answer is always no.
Oh,
So
really?
you do need to stretch before you work out because working out is a body load.
Right.
For people who know this, you would know that the mechanics, the acid breaks down your muscle builds it back stronger, but that is a damaging process. Stretching, however, is not a damaging process. You're kind of just loosely getting your body warmed up, right? And so
Right.
that warm up is quite necessary. People who work out, I do not, if I ask them, do you exercise? And they say yes, and I do not notice this improvement in their body, I will tell them, you need to stretch before you exercise. You're not stretching. And every time they tell me, no, I didn't stretch.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's a good reminder. And Yeah. So are you also saying the stretching is also helping move blood circulation and the chi, or how does
Oh,
that work?
definitely. One of the things that I think is the case, this is not kind of verified anyway in science, but the thing is, as you tighten the muscle, I
Mhm.
always tell people this because usually people do have to do garden work. You leave the hose out in the sun, you're using it to spray the garden, right? As it becomes harder, it begins to crack, it begins to leak.
Mm,
And that is what muscles are like when you keep it tense. But you
right.
buy a new pipe, it's what? It moves, it's
Uh-huh.
strong. You push down, it pushes back. You push down, it pushes back on you. But it's tangy. It has that flexibility. That's what muscle is supposed to feel like. So when I push down on a patient, what I'm supposed to feel is like I'm pushing pressure on the water pipe that you
Mm.
put in the garden. But oftentimes what I feel is it's more like a plastic pipe. There's no flexibility whatsoever. And this means that the muscle is kind of always tight.
Yeah, yeah, I
But this
understand.
always tight means that there's less blood circulation going through. You have less control of its movements. And the fact that it's tight, like I'm using an example like this, means because muscle has to have two endpoints, right?
Yeah,
So if the muscle is tight, you're pulling on both ends.
right.
And because the body is a complex system, if, for example, my shoulder is pulling these two are completely tight, they're pulling in, that also impacts my lung space. That also impacts my front, who is
Yeah.
constantly being pulled on. And all of these things kind of stack on top of each other to create this issue.
Yeah, that's such a great perspective and insight. I mean, that's interesting. You're saying if you, let's say you feel soreness here, it affects part of your lungs, everything's interconnected. Jason, can you share a bit of your reasons and your thought process of why you decided to become a student and eventually become a practitioner TCM studying under Dr. Wu?
Oh, sure. This is going to get a little personal, but
It's fine. Yeah.
so initially in middle school, it's either elementary or middle school. Sorry, I'm not perfectly clear on the timeline. I twisted my foot while we were doing soccer, and it was swollen up, and they said you need to put it on a cast, and you can't move it for 1 month, and then afterwards you're gonna take the cast off, and you're gonna need. Before then, I'm not even sure whether we had physical therapy then. It could be it was a new field, or I just didn't come into contact with it. But there was no advisory on physical therapy at the time. They basically just said you put on a cast, and then a month later you take the cast off, and you can move okay-ish with some side effects. And instead, my parents said, that's BS. We know a different way. Took me to a doctor who did what is called 正骨, which is the Chinese version of chiropractic
Oh, okay.
that existed way before the word chiropractic even existed. But they did the Tui Na treatment on me. Of course, I was screaming in the clinic. People thought I was getting murdered in there. And when I came out in 3 days, my foot was completely okay. And one of my friends even told me, I have a very clear memory of this. He says, "Wait a second, that's not scientific. How come you can move your foot?" And I said,
Oh, interesting.
mm-hmm. It's just, I don't know. I guess I'm not scientific. What can I do? And this was all kind of in the before.
Right, right.
And then when I was in high school, my father had was diagnosed with late stage prostate cancer.
Oh, wow. Mm. Oh, I'm sorry.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
And he went to Taiwan. He had herbal medicine treatment, and it was going kind of decently okay. He had more energy, and he was able to do things better. And because our family was, not very educated on this subject at the time either. And every day, everyone nowadays has the mandatory education. The education is, of course, based on science. So we came back and we switched to from Eastern medicine to Western medicine, not knowing there's a difference. And after chemotherapy, he got weaker and weaker, and
Mm.
soon wasn't able to
Yeah,
walk, and soon wasn't able to taste his food, and everything just got worse. And
I understand. It's okay, Jason. I appreciate you sharing the story. It's beautiful. I know, thanks for sharing that personal story. So, do you feel that because it hit home so deeply, you wanted to going to the naturopathic and Taoist Chinese medicine to help other people? Was that kind of a
Yes,
part of, yeah.
yes, especially because it gave me a very clear understanding that chemotherapy is simply too strong for the body to handle for many patients. Now, this was when I was in high school. I've heard the technology has improved quite a bit to be less damaging, but its side effects are still quite
I
strong.
know.
And if anybody who's watching this would like to just do a quick Google search on chemotherapy and just type in side effects of chemotherapy or something, you can
Yeah.
get things vomiting, nausea. They're not fun.
Yeah.
These are very, very strong side effects. And it really kind of motivated me after I met Dr. Wu and realized that this was TCM already had a system of dealing with issues even up to cancer, and that previously he was kind of doing well under this treatment, switching to science and not realizing that the side effects might have been too strong. It really made me
Yeah.
feel like it was my duty to also help anyone, especially if they had cancer, to help them at least say, here's a path that you can choose to take.
Exactly. I totally agree 100%. And I mean, this is a very serious health issue, especially with cancer and the chemotherapy or radiation that the average American is getting on a regular basis. And it's not really resolving much at all. People are getting sicker, and it's Jason, it's very commendable that you're wanting to do this path to help others and help educate them, to let people know, you have another option. This is not the only way. That is the mainstream option. But there's functional medicine, taking things like the herbs and the tuina, the cupping. I mean, you're naturally detoxifying, and that's a whole nother ballgame that we will go into. Um, yeah. So, um, well, thanks for sharing your story about your father,
No
Jason.
problem.
So can you share a bit more about when you study under Dr. Wu, what was your experience like with him?
So my biggest kind of experience, what I realized that was the most amazing thing about Dr. Wu is he is really showing all of us what you can choose to do.
Yeah.
And that is something that you rarely find. Like I've been to Western medicine doctors and sometimes they're just as sick as you. Not to say that that's a bad thing, but it really feels like, oh, we're just all sick. It's just the way it is. But Dr. Wu is always kind of showing people with his cheery demeanor, with doing Tai Chi, with doing Qigong, with his exercises, with his flexibility, he can do a thumb push-up. I've never been able to do that.
He can
Ever.
do thumb push-ups.
Yes. And not the and I don't mean like the normal push-up, like the full back all the way
That's
up.
that's what
I
Bruce
can't even
Lee
do that. And
that's
Dr.
what
Wu
Bruce Lee does.
sometimes shows it in
Yeah.
Qigong. He says, this is the strength that you need. So I still have a ways to go on my twin. To
No,
be fair though,
yeah.
most patients you don't need to push that hard.
Yeah. Yeah. But no,
But
when you're
Dr. Wu
talking
really
about,
shows how
yeah,
far we can choose to go if we wish to.
right. You're saying Dr. Wu can do thumb push-ups literally?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He's done it on the was is it on YouTube? I believe it's on YouTube. So if you go in, if you join his YouTube group, and now I'm advertising.
yeah,
We have a Qigong group. There are
yeah,
many kind of teachers teaching different Qigong and classes, and Dr. Wu has shown doing thumb push up and
yeah.
three finger push up. I don't remember whether it's just thumb or he did three
Okay.
finger, but I know it was something that I tried to do and I cannot.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna definitely Google that. Bruce Lee does that, the thumb push-ups.
Dr. Wu usually just does one. I think it's three finger. It might not be
Yeah.
thumb. I think he has done thumb once. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I do know that he does three finger more often.
Yeah, no, totally. But Bruce Lee did that, right?
Yes,
Okay. I'm just
it's
letting you
not
know.
usual that someone has that level of
That's
strength in their
I know
fingers.
that's what I'm trying to convey is like I didn't know he was at that martial arts level like that. No, it's amazing. So let's go back to your training. What did you learn in TCM exactly?
So Dr. Wu, after learning from him for about, it was either a year or two, somewhere between that, he recommended me to go to Beijing University of Traditional Chinese Medicine. He wrote a
Mhm.
recommendation for me, and I went to the university 5 years and graduated. I came back last year. Yes,
Oh wow.
2022 in June was my official graduation, I think.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
so during the
Congratulations. Yeah.
training, there are different parts. So first you start with fundamentals of traditional Chinese medicine, just all the fundamental stuff. And then you have herbal medicine, and you have diagnosis, you have acupuncture and other methods, which includes cupping, moxibustion, tuina, all of the other methods. And that's because I majored in herbal medicine. There's also a separate major for acupuncture because they specifically separated it out since Western medicine still likes acupuncture more than herbal medicine. And I know the reason why. It's because when you do science, one of the bigger weaknesses right now is even with all the machines we have right now, to prove something works takes so long and requires so much information that proving that an herb works is very difficult. They can prove that its primary component works, but an herb has 100 things in it. And this is why you take a look at Western medicine pills, it's almost still always just one component, maybe a little more than that. But except broad spectrum antibiotics. And even that only came into use recently, I know, because they were talking about herbal medicine and its use, and now they're kind of mixing things.
Hmm.
Instead, an herb would have 100 things in it. Okay, now how do you prove that this herb is even
Right.
safe? Do you research 100 things? 10 years for each. That's 1,000 years. Good luck. And
Wow.
so the acupuncture field major separated out just to make it so easier so that you can take this thing that you can allows you to work under Western medicine if you wish. But
Yeah.
all of the education now, Beijing University requires I take Western medicine courses as well. So I have biology, cellular biology, pharmacology, anatomy and physiology. I've seen bodies, I've seen the one soaked in formaldehyde, the nervous system, all of that. So it requires us nowadays. One of the things I do notice some people online still don't realize is in the modern age, if you go to someone who has majored in TCM,
Hmm.
right? Dr. Wu's a PhD in it. This is no longer an era where you'll go to them and be like, they don't even know about cells. People like to joke about that online all the time.
Right.
Pharmacology and cell bio is required. We know all the
Wow.
Western medicine things. It just doesn't mean that we believe it's the best option.
Yeah, no, no,
That's
no,
all.
no, Jason, that's a excellent point, and it's really important that you brought that out because I think a lot of people may think that the TCM is a little woo-woo and, like what you said, not scientifically based, but based on what you said on getting your education was at Beijing University, you said, or
Yes,
so yeah,
Beijing
you're
University.
required to take biology and cellular, well, I don't know what it's called, it's cellular.
Cellular biology, pharmacology. Pharmacology is basically the medical kind of the Western medicine, how it functions. I have
Yeah.
to know about the adrenals. I have to know which medicine to use for which. I know about the heart medicine, what is that they make you pee more, and how does that help release the pressure of the heart. All of that is kind of covered under
Yeah.
pharmacology.
Yeah, that's
Very rough
pretty,
class.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's excellent. I mean, I think that's excellent because it's very comprehensive. And now, there's more to back it up with when people say, well, Taoist Chinese medicine, what is that? And I don't think it works. It's, too woo-woo. But the fact that you have biomedicine background and studies in it, that just gives another level of clout and believability. It's just, I've noticed this kind of, I don't want to call it trend, but I have met lately a lot of doctors that have the biomedicine, internal medicine, or osteopathic medicine background, and on top of it they all still want to study Taoist Chinese medicine. They're already an MD in the internal in the Western world, but they all have come to a place where, you know, there's a strengthening when you add the TCM realm into it. Now you have Eastern and Western combined, which is so
Yes.
much stronger than just singular, so to speak, you know?
Yes.
But can you talk more about what you see in healthcare and our healthcare crisis? What do you see happening here?
So the first one is the cost is way too high. That's very simple. The cost is way too high. I'm sure every American can hear this and go, yes, medicine is too expensive. Like you look
Yes.
at the bill, if you don't have the insurance, you are not able to afford that. This goes for cars as well. It's
Yeah.
all at a point. The movement of science makes things better, more complex, but in turn, it makes the cost of creating things higher. This
Yeah.
is a conversation I had with someone who had a master's degree, and I told him, do you think Western medicine could have created acupuncture if it wasn't for TCM? I said, I do not believe that. I believe the answer is no, there is no way. And the reason why is if you take a look at Western medicine, its progress is AI. It wants to make things more complex. It is the
Mm.
natural flow of science because as things become more complex, you can solve more issues. It is a bottom up approach. TCM is the opposite. TCM is a top down approach. First, you have to say that the body, the mind, the spirit, they are all one. Then you can talk TCM. Then you talk energy, yin and yang. You talk
Mhm.
that there is an energy balance within your body. And if you can restore this balance, the body naturally heal itself. So this differentiation means that TCM is always looking for how can I resolve this in a cheaper and more efficient way, while science is always saying, how can I do that with technology, which is by default something that becomes more complex and more expensive. So I feel like that's one of the things that they made a harder choice on. It is difficult to lower the cost of something when the requirement to create the medicine to begin with, the technology is expensive. So
Yeah.
that's the first issue.
Hmm.
I think the foremost as well. The second would be more on the side effect issue is when you refine these drugs and the drugs are targeted, a lot of times your body doesn't know how to deal with it. I tell people this example all the time. I hope you don't mind a little bit of politics, but I'm
Yeah,
not
that's
gonna
fine.
side with anything. I tell people, so you know there are corrupt politicians in the US. We
Yeah.
all know. There's corrupt politicians everywhere in the world, and everyone knows that that's the case. Now imagine today if China decided to send an assassin and just kill someone who's corrupt and they said, we're here to help you. Would you believe it?
Right.
Hard, right? When you give it this medicine that is concentrated and forced to do specific things to your body, I notice that oftentimes the body doesn't know how to react. It's confused, it's fighting you, right? This is why we have immunosuppressants for Western medicine. When you have this overactive immune system, the Western medicine standard practice is to suppress it. In TCM, we don't quite believe that. We believe that if your immune system is fighting yourself, your immune system is too weak. Here's another example. I know this will make it easier for people who are watching to understand. So imagine there's a murderer, right? He's ran away and you don't know where he is. Now he ends up in an all girls middle school. How panicked do you think the police is?
Right.
Pretty
Yeah.
panicked, right?
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
imagine instead you find out this person accidentally flipped over a fence and ended up in the Navy SEALs training base. Now, how worried are you?
Right.
Ah, that is how TCM sees immune reaction. Not all. Sometimes it can be over, and you do have ways to help the immune system decrease when it realizes, oh, I'm going overboard. But there are times when the immune is too strong, TCM will actually strengthen your immune system on top of that, and the issue will resolve itself. And that's because TCM recognizes there's this issue where your immune system is jacked up because it's scared. It doesn't realize what's going on. And and Western medicine would only suppress that, which wouldn't quite help.
Right. No, they're great analogies, Jason. So from what I got from you, costs, side effects, and what I'm calling the third is natural frequency, because you're basically saying in your analogies or those last two examples is TCM is a way to naturally adapt to the body of what it's needed instead of like this shotgun of, get this completely healed and a larger dose. It's also you're an herbologist now?
Yes.
Okay, so the herbs naturally have medicinal properties in it,
Of
right?
course.
Yeah, so that's why it works. And,
Yes.
it's just really interesting because you would think common sense, like in a common sense level, that you would want to put natural, earthly, medicinal plants into you instead of pharmaceutical. You think that's a natural way of thinking. I would think that. Why is it that people don't think in that manner and just think that, is it because they think the technology or the pharmaceutical and drugs is just a more potent level of healing? Or I'm just trying to understand this. Like, why
Sure.
would
So the initial reason why Western medicine was able to kind of become so big and grow into this situation where it's a basically global industry instead of just a national level is because the benefits of Western medicine is that it's infinitely repeatable. And that is something that I will always commend them on. The infinite repeatability of it makes things a lot easier. When you know exactly what vitamin C does, you can say, okay, people, if you've been at sea for too long, you need vitamin C for sure,
right,
guaranteed.
right.
And we can process it into a pill. This is a very potent form of it. All you need is one bottle, and you're out at sea forever. You're pretty much set for months and months on end. Now, the danger comes in when this vitamin C is a lot more kind of more of a basis of how our body functions. It's vitamin level. When you have medicines that alter your body, then it becomes harder because its potency is much higher than natural. We say this as because I know this is a joke online as well, where there's just like, oh, it's natural, therefore it's better is BS. I mean, technically, yes, but what people mean when they say it's natural, therefore it's better, is on the basis of life. So I'm alive, you're alive, right?
Yeah.
A plant is alive, a fish is alive. Anything that is alive, its internal balance must be at a way where the life is sustainable. And because of that, when you take herbs, when you take things like that, it's less harmful to your body. Why? Because the object that you're taking itself had to balance itself to have been alive at some point. This is not the case for Western medicine. It is just one component. And if that component alters 20 things, and one of those doesn't agree with your body is going to have issues. And that's the difference. In Western medicine, you can think of us as all a car, and the Western medicine doctor is the mechanic. He is trying to fix you. He is going in and working on you. Now, this is something that patients say as well when they come to us, when they come to TCM. We see them as a person. My goal is always to help you deal with your body, something that you can maintain with Tai Chi, with Qigong, with your understanding, with your spirit, with all of these things combined. It is you doing the work. Dr. Wu always says, we do 30%, the 70 is on them. And this gives them this feeling of strength. This gives them this confidence. It is them in charge of their life. Whereas when you go to Western medicine, no offense to them, it often feels like, okay, you go to sleep, you go on a table, and someone is fixing you. You are not in control of your own body. Your body's broken. It sucks, and it is the way it is. We're going to give you pills. We're going to cut pieces off, etc. And for us, we really do try our best. Surgery is sometimes necessary, but we try our best not to get to that point because we hope that your body itself could maintain.
Yeah. Do you have any words of gratitude for Dr. Wu?
Yes, for sure. I would say I want to thank Dr. Wu for really teaching me the true kind of the true method of TCM, which is to both lead by example and to help people in body, mind, and spirit. And this core philosophy, even though you learn about it in school, you have to really see it in practice. And Dr. Wu's energy, his happiness, his overwhelming sense of duty and really pushes this and makes me realize that, this is what a doctor should be like.
That's wonderful. And do you have any last message to the world about TCM?
I'll use this as a time to be of homage for Dr. Wu as well. So I'll add one phrase to his. I say, fill yourself with love, and in Dr. Wu's phrase, enjoy life. If you have these two, you will find a lot more of your issues will disappear, because so much of our life right now is from stress, whether it's looking too much into politics, into local news, into crime, into all these things that worry you, that we forget ourselves to all of these negative things. But if we fill ourselves with love and enjoy life and do things in a way that cares for ourselves, a lot of issues will disappear on their own as your body heals itself.
That's awesome. A beautiful spiritual message there, Jason. Thank you for your time. Love talking
Thank you
with
very much,
you.
Judy.
And hopefully I get to interview you again. Thanks,
I would
Jason.
look forward to talking to you more too.
Yes. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.